Sleep became unbearable. I would close my eyes and try to dream of you, but you never came to me. Instead, I would find myself dreaming of deep, ice-cold waters. Sadness would come crashing over my body like a wave in a storm. This is how I learned one could cry in their sleep. Did you ever dream of ice-cold waters? Did you ever cry while sleeping? In those early days, he would feel my pain without either of us speaking a word. And in his sleep, he pulled me close, so I wouldn't have to feel alone anymore. Nowadays, I'm forced to pretend. I meet them with a polite smile so they do not have to sit in the discomfort of my truth. That since you died, I live in a performance that mimics a life I used to enjoy. Day in and day out, I find myself going through the motions. The same routines, the same monotonous chatter. And I participate. I act as if I'm present. And all this pretending, it's so exhausting. But perhaps pretending is better than bearing the weight of embarrassment that comes with their pity. So I lie. I tell everyone that I'm okay on days that I can't keep my head above water. Because I don't want them to know that this loss makes me feel like I can't leave my bed. I will, though, eventually get up. For them. For they are my everything. It is the overwhelming sensation of guilt that carries the most weight. It seems to be rotting the inner linings of my stomach, so much so that today I'm physically ill. Do you think if I had done things differently, you would still be alive? It seems that the choices I made for you on your behalf, it didn't matter. Like most people do, I hoped for more time. But time was not on my side. I was too late. And you died anyway. And I can't help but feel that it was my fault, you know? I can't help but feel that it was my fault that I couldn't stop all of this from happening. And for that, I am sorry. I am so sorry. How do I hold their pain if I myself am drowning? I don't know how to do this. He offers me his hand when I start feeling this way, that feeling that I cannot catch my breath, when I feel like I have panic in my chest, and he saves me. He saves me in ways that I could not save you. And he makes sure that I don't have to do this alone. And for that, I am forever indebted to him. Together, we hold their grief in our hands. Because it is their loss too. And we'll walk them through storms like you did for me when I suffered my first loss. Memory has a duality to it. I remember things vividly, but it is not without falsehoods. I think this must be a form of self-preservation, a way of protecting us both. You see, now that you're gone, I find that my mind blurs the hard parts. The parts that made you difficult and challenging and so very human. The parts that made a relationship painful at times and complicated. No, I don't hold on to that. Instead, I hold on to your best parts, your beautiful parts, the parts of you that made you so effortlessly spread joy to those around you. On my better days, I find myself by the water, our favorite place to be. I close my eyes and whisper into the river things I wish I could tell you. I never wanted you to get sick, but I'm working on figuring this all out. I'm not mad at you, I never was. I know you were afraid. I was afraid too. I'm finding love and strength through new and beautiful friendships. I look at them and I see you. He is a lot like you. She is a lot like you. He is empathetic. She is charismatic. He would do anything for anyone. She loves to laugh. I miss your laugh. He loves fiercely, like you loved fiercely. They talk about you every day, and on my best days, I have the strength to retell stories you told me. This keeps your memory alive within them. I want you to know I hold on to the memory of who you were and not who you became. I wish we had one more day together. Just to say one more time, I love you.
Wow. We just watched We Hold Their Grief in Our Hands, directed by Carlie Sherry, who's with us today. I'm really proud of Carlie joining us today, and huge thanks to all our panelists also joining us live. We have Ian Dixon, we have Shisha Pereira, Nidhi Srivastava, and Kira Obard. I have a lot of questions and reflections, but first I would love everybody to introduce themselves. Please introduce yourself, tell us which city you're logging in from, and share one positive news that you would like us to share and celebrate together. We're going to start with Carlie Sherry, who's the director of the film We Hold Their Grief in Our Hands. Carlie?
Hi, everybody. I'm Carlie Sherry, and I'm a multimedia artist that primarily does gallery work, actually, and an assistant professor of foundations at Pratt Munson, and I'm logging in from New Hartford, New York. One exciting thing that's coming up is actually just me hopping back into the classroom. I love teaching, so I'm really excited to do that as the semester's starting, and also my daughter is starting kindergarten this year, so that's like really big for our household.
I'm excited for you, Carlie. Thank you for sharing that. And Carlie is also attending the film festival, our final film festival on August 30th. So it's going to be a real pleasure to celebrate all films together in person.
Yes, I'm really excited for that as well.
Yeah, so looking forward to seeing you in person. Ian, Shisha?
No, we'll go left to right. Actually, left to right. Okay, hello. I'm Ian. I'm an associate professor in Singapore for Nanyang Technological University. My field is film studies and filmmaking, practice-led scholar, and that's it from me. Back to you.
I'm Sirsha Pereira. I used to work at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, but now I'm back working in Melbourne at Deakin University. I'm a lecturer of film, and my area of expertise is documentary, and I teach South Asian film and a whole stack of other units as well. But my awesome, wonderful news is that our daughter just turned 12 a couple of days ago. So we're moving from the, the young years into the teen years, and we're both terrified, but kind of celebrated as well.
Yeah, I understand.
And I'm a filmmaker. Sorry.
Thank you, Shisha. Nidhi?
Hi, such a lovely film. My name is Nidhi Srivastav. I am an assistant teaching professor at Sacred Heart University in English, but my work is very intersectional. It looks at the Me Too movement and how it's limited in India through by understanding cinema, literature, as well as the 1947 partition archive testimonies. Because my work basically looks at how we understand India's rape culture today by looking at it through a more historical lens and seeing it and how it's ethically represented in cinema, in literature, but also how. So my research basically shifts the focus from the body to the voice, and by understanding silence and all of that. So poetry is also part of that, and how trauma and trauma theory is linked. One exciting news. I somehow, in spite of all of the political stuff that's going on, I have been selected as one of the institutional fellows that works on, I guess, like the diversity issues at my university, which is a big deal right now. Recently, unfortunately, they did disband that particular organization, but then now they're recreating one within the Catholic mission. So I think it'll be a very interesting way to still do the same project.
Yay, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi, and hope to see you in Toronto one day soon.
I will be in Toronto for the MLA conference in January, but I don't know like what the details are of it yet. Just with
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Kiera?
Hi, yes, I'm Kira Obard. I've just started a postdoc, a SSHRC-funded postdoc at the University of Waterloo here in Ontario, and I'm joining from Toronto, Ontario today. This is my cat Floof, who has decided to join us. Say hi, sweetheart. Oh, and a piece of good news. Oh, he's mad now. No, he's gone. A piece of good news. I just received approval to go on a little European writing retreat next month. So I'll be working on my my first book manuscript while I'm away. So I'm very excited for that.
Congrats, Kira. Congrats.
That's
you.
huge. That's really exciting.
Totally envious.
Yes, it'll be very fun. And Nidhi, I'll be at MLA as well in January. So.
And does your cat have a PhD?
Thank you.
He thinks so.
I'll just be right back. I have to close the door.
Okay. I will introduce myself. Most times I forget to introduce myself, and I definitely forget to share good news. So I'll take the opportunity to fill in all that. So my name is Samita Nandi. I'm the director of the Center for Media and Celebrity Studies, now sponsoring the Wall of Fame Film Festival. And we're really proud of all our delegates, our panelists who join us. And we celebrate role models for human rights, animal rights, environmental ethics beyond the tabloid politics of fame. And one good news, we, in the sense, like me and my guests, they were featured on CBC Radio. And so, yeah, that was fantastic. It was across the nation. It was in the West Coast in Alberta. But me and my guests, we were all across Canada. So that's one good news, I guess. We spoke on Justin Trudeau, the former Prime Minister. So I would really like to move on from there, from all the celebrities, and celebrate the role models that we have in everyday life. And Carlie, you are a role model, and you are beautifully voicing the process of grief that you spoke of. And I wanted to hear more from you. What was the process of creating this film? You did a monochrome film. You have a monochrome color palette, and also you named "We Hold Their Grief in Our Hands," which sort of seems like you're speaking on behalf of not only yourself, but also many survivors and also those who have crossed over. Can you tell us a little bit about the film?
Yeah, sure. So the film was made in response to my father passing away. And I really wanted to create this film that reflected on love and loss. But I also wanted to think about this honest reflection of the grieving process, as I talk about a lot in the film and kind of lay that out. I was thinking about, or like really wanted the film to show like this raw and difficult process of grief that we don't oftentimes see, that's private and oftentimes behind closed doors, and really as a means of an act of vulnerability. And with that vulnerability in mind, I was hoping that people who view the film and can watch it can understand that grief is universal and that you are not alone in the grieving process, right? But in terms of the title, "We Hold Their Grief in Our Hands," that was really thinking about grieving the first time as a mother, and thinking about my own children, who it wasn't just my grief that I was responsible for anymore. I was responsible for these two beautiful babies' grief as well, who are really close to their grandfather. So thinking about like the first time losing somebody where I was responsible for somebody else's grief, and also thinking about who is responsible for mine. And in the film, I talk a lot about like my husband, who was there for me, and community as well.
Thank you, Carlie. And that really clarifies, your intention, your vision, and the collective memory that you're sharing. Any initial thoughts or impressions from the panelists? Ian, Shisha, Nidhi, Kiera.
I will. You want to go? Okay. I hate jumping in, especially since I'm the only male on the panel, and that's what males do. So, listen, I just want to start by saying, Carlie, thank you very, very much for a really unique cinematic experience, and a very touching one. Reminds me of Maya Deren in a lot of ways. Did you feel that?
Yes, I was just about to jump in. I should have spoken first.
It's not a competition. So I just want to celebrate. I was doing some research last year on cinematic time and the fact that time grew up with cinema, because Greenwich Mean Time was only a short establishment before we had cinema. And
Exchange pens.
Sure. Does not work. So you can
This is my favorite.
I hope we didn't miss anything. The audio was very choppy at the end. Ian, Shisha, can you hear us? And I think they froze, so I'll have to message them. Nidhi, Kiera, any thoughts or impressions on Carlie's film?
Yeah, Carlie, thank you so much for such a beautiful and touching film. It was really lovely to be able to view it and to get to chat with you about it today. What really struck me in particular was this emphasis on the hands, as you talked about. My grandmother passed about 2 years ago now, and I just remember before she passed, everyone, all the women wanted to get photos of their hands with her hands. So we would all have this memory of the hands and sort of the symbolism that the hands have in terms of love. So I found that really striking in your film as well.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved. Thank you for the film, and also the fact that there's so much beauty in poetry, and also how we also often associate grief with lacking color.
Yeah.
And I find that really fascinating because I'll just tell an anecdote. I'm here actually for a remembrance. Think from one of my really good friends who I lost like earlier this year, unexpectedly. She was only 47, and it was due to like health issues and heart issues. But then we were, so she was half Buddhist and I think half American. So they did like, so they were trying to like honor her Buddhist side and then do a Buddhist ceremony. Now, having grown up in South Asia and Southeast Asia, I was like, oh, well, I don't think that we wear black necessarily for grieving, like with that. But when I asked everyone for like, oh, what's the color palette that you want for us to wear? The immediate response was, well, it's all black. And I was just like, but wait, it's a Buddhist ceremony, right? So shouldn't I thought the colors would be light, it'd be bright because that's how her personality was.
Yes.
So it was very interesting that like dull colors are often associated with death. And so for me, it was also interesting that even that was your color palette choice for the film. So I was wondering like what was your connections between those like decision of choosing that? That was like,
Yeah, I think in the way that I think about grief, and I talked a little about depression in there as well. It is this like lack of feeling bright when you're going through grief. So I did go into a monochromatic color palette where yeah, I just like wanted everything to be drained of color in a way that like that's how I was feeling at the time. And I also consider my personality to normally be bright and bubbly, but during that time, that is not how I felt at all, and it was really difficult for me to be myself for about a year. For about a whole year, I had a hard time. Yeah, so that was really my decision for the film and making it monochromatic.
Yeah, I always think about authenticity too when it comes to like a black and white color palette. And it gives a lot of room for engagement too. So I think, although literally it was black and white, but you filled up with, the richness of your voice. That was something that really stood out for me. Your voice, and how it filled all the gaps of life, and of course the holding hands, the close-ups. So although it feels like, and I did lose both my parents very early on, both my mom and dad, they crossed over, and I know how it is. And it's very interesting how we choose to represent that. And I would say on one hand, literally, the black and white palette, it represented how you feel the void, at the same time, like I feel like you filled a lot of gaps just with your voice and the close-ups. And so there was a sense of tactility, intimacy, and very, very authentic. We have a couple of guests who are online, and Diana says that she appreciates the rawness and the vulnerability, and it resonates and touches the heart. And she also says that your film is very moving, and we all remember our loved ones through the film. It's universal. I think that's also the way you address, the way you name the film. It's very universal. It really speaks to all. Any other thoughts? Any questions, thoughts on the creative process? Carlie, did you have any institutional support or support from family and friends in creating this piece?
In terms of institutional support, it's a very low budget film. So, but my institution did provide like a really nice camera that we have at the facility. So I was able to film with a really nice DSLR camera. And the institution that I work for also supporting me. This work will be in the faculty show that we have coming up at Pratt Munson. And I also showed the work in a gallery space in our hometown. And in terms of support from family, my poor husband, I always make him watch my films over and over and over again to see like the nuances and just give me any feedback that he can possibly give. And he's a computer engineer, by the way. He is like, this is like not his field at all. But yeah, he is incredibly supportive in making the film. And, you know, because I am in the film, he's often the one who sits, you know, I line up the shot and everything. And he's often the one who will push record on the camera for me. So things like that. Yeah. Yes.
So he's in the credits, Carlie?
I didn't name him in the credits, but he should be. Yes.
Why not name him? Is that what he preferred?
He sometimes gets really shy, you know, like I actually gave him a big thank you in the gallery exhibition that I had while showing this film, and I watched his face go completely red. Yeah, but he is incredibly supportive. Yeah. And I had him in shooting the film on the shots where I'm lying down in bed. I had him like stand up on a ladder and tape a camera to the ceiling, you know. So he's incredible, and I'm really grateful for him for that.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was split screen you were using, or were you actually shooting past the fan down to your bed?
I had 2 camera shots up. So I had like one on the side of the bed and then one above the bed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The nice camera was on the side of the bed. The iPhone was taped to the ceiling.
A reference to Apocalypse Now, or just a damn good visual?
Oh, I actually have never seen Apocalypse Now, but I will watch it.
Okay, you mark my words. The opening scene is a reference to your film.
Oh, that's really? Okay.
So, listen, Carlie, I wanted to ask because black and white is pure cinema, and if you had I assume that was a 4K DSLR.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah. Your images look beautiful, but as soon as you show a film in black and white, I'm taken back to Jean Cocteau, and I even wondered if there were references to Cocteau and to Genet in particular. A couple of the shots that you had, I won't say the nasty word derivative, but the swinging of the flowers across was very Genet. And when it comes to Cocteau, I'm thinking of your process. This is a question that I'm formulating here. In your process, as Cocteau said, when a poem came to him, it was like he was being raped by an angel, as if the angel had landed on his back, and the only way to shake that angel off was to write a poem. I wondered what your process of grieving was like through the film, and did the filmmaking ease or change your grief in any way? I mean, grief is awful. I've just lost my own parents too, so I can relate totally to the film. But was there a change in you as a result of making this highly poetic film?
Certainly. Yeah. So in terms of the process, I usually start with writing, and this film in particular was incredibly difficult for me to write. And I started writing it while I would say, in the thick of the grieving process. And then I had to really give it a lot of space. When I came back to the writing, I was reading through what I wrote, and honestly, it just looked like verbal spew. Like, I don't know, it was very like raw and almost didn't make any sense. So after some time, I rewrote it again, and then I gave space, and then I came back to it, and I still had so much editing to do in the writing for clarity. It's almost like when I was writing it, I was just like putting it all out there, but it wasn't super clear, you know, it was kind of like sporadic. And when I had written the final draft, I would say it was about a year later, and I had really come a long way in my grieving process. You know, it's not like I was totally through it, but I did a lot of work and healing. And in terms of the film, I always think about, you know, a lot of my films do deal with like love and loss and vulnerability. And sometimes when I'm talking about something that's difficult, it does feel better when it's done. So in a way, yes, like it's very healing to make that sort of work, you know, like you do the writing and then you do the shots. And then I know for me, after I'm done with the film, there's like it's like cathartic kind of, there's a healing process through it.
Carlie, I'd just like to jump in and say congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
And it's a beautifully, beautifully moving film. And as Samita said, universal and, you know, in terms of loss, not just loss of a parent, but applicable across the board, just loss. I see a lot of influences that I resonate with within the world of the film. So Maya Deren, I can see a little bit of La Jetée through it. I can certainly see Agnes Varda's, you know, work coming through in some of the images, Chantal Ackerman. And even, you know, elements of Gurinder Chadda's Baji on the Beach, you know, those moments where the black and white moments within that film that resonate with me. I would love to hear what your influences are and where, you know, you draw from for some of those beautifully, beautifully moving images that you constructed. And I do have another question, but I'll get to that after your response for this.
Yeah, so in terms of film, actually, my background is a Master's of Fine Arts in Painting. So I'm actually relatively new to filmmaking. Probably in the last 7 years or so, I've been like making films. And really, I came to that because I had given birth to my son, and I was like trying to be a painter, and it felt impossible. So one night a week, I actually went to a film class at the institution that I work for. We had a visiting artist there, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm really going to be interested in making film. And then I completely fell in love with it, actually, in the way of storytelling, in a way that painting was never doing it for me. So I felt very honored to take that class. But in terms of influences, a lot of like film background, I don't have a lot of information on that, or like a artist database in my head or a director database in my head. But I do really love some gallery artists that are like really different than the world of film that you're referencing. Like when I first started making film, I really loved Marilyn Minter, who is like has this like high feminized sort of way of making film. Not a direct reference to what I'm doing, very, very different actually. But that was like kind of like an early reference for me in terms of filmmaking. And then in terms, this is like more Hollywood-based film, but I really appreciated the film Jojo Rabbit, because I thought it equally balanced this sort of like comedy, which isn't normally what I do, but the shots I just found absolutely stunning. You know, there's like beautiful shots in like the woods in that film, where they're doing like a lot of panning. You'll see something similar in mine towards the end, where I'm like panning across water and thinking about those sort of shots. But yeah, Jojo Rabbit is also like incredibly vulnerable and raw and honest. And so not so much in terms of the visuals, but I think about that when I'm making a film, about this like vulnerable honesty sort of approach to my making.
Yeah, it seems like there's a combination of intuition. You have intuitive as well as creative strategies, I would say. So I would say a combination of both, and I think it's an honor to be compared to famous filmmakers, especially from film studies. But I can relate to Carlie because when I create moving images, they're often, again, intuitive and also creatively strategic. And it just comes from, where I am in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yes, a lot of, rewrites and edits. And I remember Diana here, she was, asking a question, was the film healing? And I would just say, like, it's, the process, it allows you to allocate time and space to grief in a very different way. I think grief is still grief, but it's how we attach meanings to it, and how we keep the person alive. What would you say to that, Carlie? Like, any thoughts coming to you?
Yeah, I do think in a way that the film became a tribute to my father in a way. I will say that in the film, I was really careful not to say father or, anything like that. I was really just like careful to make sure that it was open. So people could watch the film and like understand grief through their own lens or their own experiences of loss. But yeah, I certainly feel like it kind of like memorialized my relationship with my father. I did talk a lot about the water, which is a reference to like the St. Lawrence River, a space that he and I had spent like my entire life fishing on. And also, luckily, my son was able to experience that as well before he had passed. So, yeah, I think like films can kind of memorialize, or like you can watch it over and over again, and it's certainly a tribute to him and his life and our relationship as well.
Yeah, we're celebrating your father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
two questions just springboarding from that. I'm sorry, Kira, you wanted to talk.
Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to ask, so in the film, you talk about this tension with memory, though, and memory as being kind of like fallible, right?
Yeah.
So this is a memorialization of your father, and yet we have these tensions in memory and grief and trauma, right? So I wonder if you would speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I found I do say this line in there about like like a couple things, like referencing that he was like a complicated person, right? But I found something interesting happened after he had passed away, which is like all those complexities about him or things that were like, tense in our relationship sometimes. I found that after he had passed away, like that was like almost washed out. So I like acknowledged that there were times when our relationship that, like my memory of him could be tense at times. But after he had passed away, I thought it was interesting that I was no longer holding on to any of those complexities in our relationship. And that I think our memories do this like protective thing to try to hold on to somebody. I don't know the psychology behind that or the science behind that, but that's, the reflection of my experience there. And also, like, when he was sick, he was struggling with like a mental issue, and he like became a person that I didn't know anymore. And so I was thinking a lot about like his memory and during that time, which was like false and faulty, and how this like physical and mental ailments of the illness that he was going through changed the way he remembered things as well. And yeah, so I was thinking a lot about that, and like one of the last lines in the film also referenced that, like, I'm remembering who you were, not who you became. Yeah, so I was often thinking about tension of memory in the film.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Kira, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's such a interesting dynamic that we fall into when somebody passes, and such a complex thing to capture in film and in writing. So I just thought that was really beautiful. Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
thanks.
Having come to the end of a film that Sumita has just very, generously supplied a wonderful quote for, the last film I shot was about grief, and it was about grief particularly pertaining to the Singaporean experience of grief, which is very, very different in terms of its emotional focus than an American film. Two entirely different cultures, and the concept of filial piety, and how, in order to, if you show grief, it's considered disrespectful to your parents, which to an American way of thinking is baffling. I think. I don't know. I'm not American. But I found it really curious that you're referring to the river and to the fish, because the central image in my own film is water and fish. And I think I've really pushed that too far. But do you think, I certainly feel this way, and I'd love you to agree or disagree, especially disagree, that Jungian notion of the ocean representing our feelings. And just recently in when you see the water in your film, it made me think of my trip to India, and I was in Varanasi, and those of you who are of Indian descent are nodding at this. I let 20 fish go in the name of my mother, so that animals represent the living and the fish represent the dead. And to release those into the Ganges River was an incredibly healing process. I just wondered, because you bonded with your father over the river, over the fishing that you did together, how does that reinvent itself when you make a film about that subject?
Well, in the film, I actually try to make it in terms of fishing. Like, I don't necessarily reference fishing in the film. I just try to make it vague a little bit, but did reference the water in a way that I know for me, going back to the water, I find this sense of like peace, like I felt calm there. And I even remember right after my father's passing, there was like, like you hop back into your life once the grieving process is over. And I remember not being super, I wasn't handling it very well, but I remember having a day where, not on the St. Lawrence River, but I was with my son, like my mom duties still remained. And we went to the beach together. And I remember that day being like so calm for me, just like being in the water. So I think for me, there's something that's like calm, like I find a sense of peace there. And I wonder if that is like a reference to my childhood in a way. And alongside, I should say, like alongside the film that I showed in a gallery space, I had made several photographic works, and the photographic works had these like overlays on top of them of photos I found from my father's estate, photos that we had together, and like photos that I took, like of my son the day that we went fishing. And so many of those were references to like these overlays of like water. There's references to fish. There's fish in like every single one of them. There's photos of my father fishing when he was a child, and they're kind of abstracted, in a way that also references memory and is, kind of, they're just like really overlaid and obscured, so it's hard to ground them. But yeah, there was a lot of references to water and fishing. And I understand what you're saying too. Like there's a lot of, like people or like artists or directors who are like referencing water as a means of like referencing life or the fluidity or, I think that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I'd
it's
love to
beautiful
see your
just to
film.
show nature. I think it's an expression of authenticity. It's, like where we come from and to go back to.
Yeah.
And yeah, water is very it's calming, it's healing, it's, it flows. And I feel it represents the continuity of life. And that's something that, I love celebrating. And I feel like, personally, I feel like, the way we commemorate our departed ones, the way we keep them alive, it's stronger than a lot of other people, in this mortal society that leave, so, and that, flow of water is just beautiful to show, like the continuity of life. While so many other living people, like they are actually like, they're the ones, passing on and leaving. And so yeah, I just love the way, you showed nature too. Any thoughts, Nidhi?
I actually I'm at a very interesting stage in my grieving process. I lost my mom in 2016. And the first almost I think the first 4 years or almost 6 years were very, very hard. So what I did was I ended up putting all of my energy into work. Um, but now I'm actually going through this process in my research for my monograph where I'm listening to archival testimonies from the partition archive. So that's what I've been doing the last week or two, like trying to get as many as I can. And what I've been finding is that what the contrast in cultures, like whereas like here, and that's what something that Ian also referred to in terms of like how in Asia, Asian countries, there's a lot more resistance to embracing difficult subjects, and there's a lot more, like, even if an interviewer will come across a situation where it's a difficult topic, they tend to like skirt over it rather than confronting it. And
Mm.
so it's a very
Yeah.
interesting it was a very interesting contrast because the film is very calming and peaceful and all of that. But I remember, like, when I was going through my grief, it was very chaotic. It was very, like, in terms of like how the family members were dealing with it, how
Yes.
the politics that were behind it. So on one hand, I could relate to it, but on the other hand, like the chaos, like, still remains in terms of like what the person leaves behind. So, but I don't know if there was any chaos that was there in your life that you kind of either didn't include in, or was that like if that was a choice, or if the choice was to kind of like go around the chaos, because I feel like with grief also comes chaos of the person who's like left behind. And that's the same thing I'm finding within the partition archives, is that when it comes time for difficult topics like sexual violence and stuff, like they'll talk about everything under the moon, but when the survivor wants to share that, I witnessed something or I experienced something, it's the interviewer who kind of gets like,
Yeah.
like, I'm not so sure if I can handle you talking about it, so I want to, like, move on from that question, that, so it's a very so those are the kind of thoughts I have in my mind, just because I've been working on, like, listening to archival testimonies recently. So that's where my brain, so that's what I was thinking about while I was watching it.
Well said, Nidhi. Well
Yeah.
said.
And I think you're totally spot on. Like, so in terms of my grieving process, I definitely didn't talk about this, maybe because of like other people's perspective about my father's death, or like, there's like all these other people's behaviors and how they're grieving differently. I kind of like respected their own processes around it, but it was certainly chaotic. I was also the administrator of my father's estate. So like, on top of grieving, there was all these like logistical things that had to happen around my father's estate. And it was kind of on me to like figure all of that out. I am also grateful for my husband in this moment, because he was taking care of like small things like canceling the garbage truck pickup, things like that. Where I was dealing with like lawyers and like, it was like, and siblings and how they were dealing with that dynamic as well. So that first year on top of grief felt incredibly chaotic. And I think I do reference like in moments of feeling depressed, but I think that's like the anxiety part that I reference in the film. certainly was dealing with like, oh my gosh, there's like just so much on my plate, and like I don't know how to handle all of this. Yeah, so I think there was a lot of chaos. And then in terms of like how people talk about grief, I do feel like in America too, we're like terrible about talking about it. Like we're and that's in part why I made the film as well, because we don't often know how to talk about grief. So like when you you know, like I have a friend right now who's also like whose mom is like not doing very well, and it is hard to talk about it, you know, even if you've already been through it, it's difficult to talk about. So in making the film, I think acknowledging that grief is universal, but also thinking about like how we have a hard time talking about it, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's one of your, biggest contributions here. Like, you are feeling a huge void, and you are, you're putting it out there that grief is something that we all go through, and there are different ways to talk about it. Like, and you poetically addressed it. Diana here says she wrote a story or a poem when her daughter passed away. And it was based on a story that she told her to help ease her passing. So poetry is very special in terms of representing relationship to loss and healing, I would say. Diana, thank you for sharing that. So I guess it's also how we rewrite our narratives, like, let's say, there was chaos before. When a person passes on, it's very, very overwhelming, and it's just cognitively overwhelming. On one hand, you miss the person more and more as time goes by. But right at that time, there are estate duties. There's a career going on. And I remember when my dad passed on, I was in the middle of 3 conferences. And within 6 months, also wrapping up all the estate duties. And, there are a couple of things that I did not prioritize right at that time. So I just took it slow, like when it came to like, real estate and stuff. So, but yeah, it's a very difficult process. And I think the way you attach meanings to it over time, I think that's the most important. I think those who pass on, we have a lot of chances to keep them alive. But for us to, keep going, and for us to rise, on the path that, they envisioned, that we shared, that's one of the hardest ones. And I really appreciate the film that you have done, Carlie. And you did it in a very difficult time. And it's just beautiful. It's strong. And yeah, it's wonderful. We have just a few minutes left here. Time has passed so quickly. Ian?
Yeah. Well said again, Samita. Carlie, I wanted to come back to the images in the film. Okay, so we've all fallen in love with the images of your film. And I particularly wanted to comment on the laying down of those flowers. I'm just in pre-production now for my next film, and there's a lot of flower imagery, and I'm shooting in black and white. So I was pleased to see in your film it actually works. It works quite nicely, because when you shoot flowers, you want to see the color. So it's going to be a very strange experience shooting in this great black and white thing. But to come back to the images of your film, there is one most poignant image. And that is you lying on your bed, staring directly at the camera. Because a lot of my research is in the nuances of performance and performativity, I have to say, in your eyes, that was completely naked, completely vulnerable. I have to take
I would disagree that the film is raw. It doesn't seem raw to me. It seems like, by its very nature and by the fact that you've committed it to celluloid, it feels like a processed thing.
Mm.
That is not taking away from your film. That's just like what one critical eye says about it, and someone else, Diana here, felt that it was very raw, and I don't take that away. That's just post-structuralism, right? We're reading it different ways.
Yeah.
But that moment of you staring at the camera, I could see grief in your eyes. That sort of, that state you get to, and we've all seemed to have had loss. I wonder if everyone else relates to this too. It's like at a certain stage, you just couldn't give up about what the person you're looking at thinks of you.
Yeah.
Because people are always coming up and they're going, oh, my condolences, I'm sorry for your loss, and all these other cliches. And after a while, that seems like, oh, just shut up. I have nothing to give you. Now, I found in your film that was as poignant as, say, a performance like Richard Nixon. What am I thinking of? Sean Penn, when he played the assassin of Richard Nixon, went to a place of complete and utter depression.
Yeah.
And what I saw in your eyes in that moment was you were every bit as good as Sean Penn, because he went to just this place and you didn't feel as if you needed to perform at all.
Yeah.
And that is a very rich and rare image to have in a film. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was so nice of you to say. Thank you.
So much to learn just from your film. And, before I wrap up, I just wanted to say that, your film is also an educational tool, right? So, and me coming from media and public relations, I would always think of, reaching out to, different media outlets. But one of our panelists, in the past, he said that, well, the film is the medium, and it's also an educational tool, for both teaching and learning. So I envision a very long journey for your film. And not only this film, I hope you also tell many more stories in different genres and formats. Any closing words, Carlie, before we go? It's very difficult to say goodbye, and I'm sure, we're all going to be, thinking about your film in the next couple of days. And of course, you do have a screening coming up on August 30th in downtown Toronto.
Yeah.
And Kira is also going to be there. Kira also has a screening there. She also did a beautiful poetry film. Any final words, Carlie, before, we say bye just at the moment, but we're going to see each other?
Yes. Well, looking forward to seeing you, Samita, and Kira in person. But really just thank you all for taking the time to watch my film today. And thank you for the wonderful insights that you provided. And I will say, Ian, now I feel like I have to rewatch the interview that we just had and start going back and looking at all the films that you are referencing. So I'm excited for my mini homework assignment here. Yeah, and as an educator, of course, we're all lifelong learners. So I'm excited to learn more about some of the things you are referencing. And just thank you all for your time.
Well, thank you for your film.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So till we meet next time and speak more, I wish you a wonderful Sunday.
Yes.
And we're going to be in touch.
All right. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
See you soon.
Great to see you all.
See you.
Well done, Carlie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, too. Yeah.